Hello, Abigail here with the astrology for this week. So, if you remember, last week was a lot. This week is a little less intense. We do still have a kind of a pretty consistent lineup of something every day. It is not quite as action packed. We do have some spicy stuff going on, though. It is a continuation. This is the final little stretch of the Mercury retrograde. This is the final stretch of the Saturn retrograde. We have a square with the nodes. It's still pretty testy. It's just not as, I think, completely overwhelming. It's still going to be a lot, but it's not quite as like the wall of water, the tsunami energy of last week, which wasn't necessarily negative. It's just a lot of energy. It doesn't always have to be good and bad. It often isn't. It is just a lot of something. And we're kind of still in that energy because we're still in this kind of water trine vibe, which is very important. And not to mention, then we have Mars and Sagittarius squaring the nodes, which is where we start this week on Monday, with Mars square the nodes at 14 degrees. And the nodes are in Virgo and Pisces. Nodal squares often feel eclipsy. This is going to call back to the eclipses that we experienced both earlier this year with all the retrogrades in Aries, and then also both, most recently in Virgo season. So yeah, it's spicy. Mars is cutting, it is severing, it is demanding things. And oftentimes in Sagittarius, it demands wisdom and comprehension. And it's an interesting combination of like a great healer, but this is a healer who like re-breaks bones to reset them and cuts things off to eliminate the threat and things like that. A very aggressive form of healing. And I will just say this, and I said this for the new moon video, because that square is still activated as the ruler of the chart, as Mars is the ruler of that chart, that this is going to feel very demanding. And if you are holding on to things that are not meant for you, this is, especially if you held on to them through the eclipses, this is the breaking point. And if you don't let them go this time, we'll have the Venus square, we'll have the Mercury square, we'll have the Sun square, and each one will make it harder and harder for you to hang on. So if you can release some things, I would encourage you to do so. And Mars will be incredibly helpful in doing this. So if you can activate it, activate it. Also, it'll be past the point of exaction, but Venus will have had a trine to the North Node. So there is a softening here, a kind of a tenderness that is going to kind of help us move through. This is also going to be very relational focused, even though Mars isn't technically relationships, and even though that North Node, and it depends on your chart. I mean, for me it is because that North Node is in my 7th. But with Venus in that trine, it's going to bring out, like, is this the best thing for you? Is this person aligned with you? Will this relationship contribute not to just your growth, but to the growth of the other people? Because we have to remember that everyone else has their own chart that they're working out and working through. So this is a point of decision. It also can be a point of celebration because everyone is at a different phase when they engage with these aspects. And so your engagement with it is not going to look the same as someone else. Maybe you have let that thing go. And so maybe now this is a celebration and a finalizing of a decision you made. If you haven't let it go, then maybe this is that initial kind of like, oh, I have to release this, or no one will be happy. Like that, so don't feel bad at the point that where you're at, or confused if someone else is in a different place. That's also a completely different natal chart than you. Then on Tuesday, we have Mercury conjunct Venus. This feels really tender. Depending on where it is in your chart, this can also be that kind of recognition of who someone truly is. Of being like, oh, they've been saying they were this, and I was like, no, they are not this. Especially if you care about someone, that can be a thing where something that I've learned recently is that I tend to be a very like giving, affectionate person, maybe almost to an extreme due to trauma. And so I often imbue other people's intentions and actions with my own desire to support and comfort. And that's just not real. And it's just not true. And so I would not be surprised if I have another recognition, because I tend to have realizations in like a cycle. It's very autistic of me. I don't get everything all at once. I often have to like relive trauma over and over again to process said thing. um, it is the pattern of a traumatized mind, and then you add the autism, and it's intense. Anyways, off of that rabbit trail. This is a moment to kind of look at our relationships and see what they are. This is also just a continuation of all the themes we've been dealing with. Also, the next day we are going to have a Jupiter Saturn grand trine with Venus, and this, Venus is already like hovering at those degrees. So in this moment of this conjunction with Mercury, we are coming to terms with these things. We are recognizing what we want. This is also going to be really important for those of us who are exploring our sexuality or our gender fluidity. This sudden recognition in Scorpio of like our connection to our body and how we feel about it. And maybe there's a moment where some of us recognize that we desire a different kind of body than we thought, not maybe our own, but specifically sexually of other people. If you have wanted to experiment with different relational types, maybe you are more suited to non-monogamy or polyamory. I'm not. I've thought about it a lot. But if you are, these types of conjunctions are these moments of like, oh, this might be possible. And for some of us, maybe it's just a thought experiment or just a physical thing that we go explore for a couple of months. But for some of us, I think this is going to be really revealing as to how we work and the partners that we're attracted to. And this is also going to be really helpful for undoing patriarchal beliefs and like who were you told was desirable growing up and who did your parents admire and sexualize. And those things really stick with kids, especially in homes that have unhealthy, boundaryless stuff when it comes to things like sex and like autonomy and consent. Um, so yeah, this is a moment to explore, to deviate, and I don't use the negative term, to deviate from the norm, to play with different proclivities and desires and passions. And for some of us, maybe this is long term, and for some of us, maybe it's just us stretching our soul just a little bit. And for some of us, it's just us progressing right past the binary, right past gender, right past our belief in what things used to be. And so it's really exciting. It might be hard because we will be confronted with some stuff we maybe weren't quite ready to confront, some childhood trauma from why we see ourselves the way we see. This is also a day for my body dysmorphia folks that might be kind of high if we haven't worked through it. If we have, it also could be a recognition that things have gotten better. Or it could be a hard day where you feel like things have gotten worse. This is also, especially with kind of like Saturn Neptune stuff that's been going on for a long time, a lot of it has affected people with their eating habits. Um, yeah, it can get dicey with this kind of energy, but I encourage you to take it more as an exploration rather than something that is permanent. And if it's too much to look in the mirror today, then don't. But then maybe sit back and kind of think about why that is something that you struggle with, and you know maybe you're not ready for that now, but your body deserves to be seen. And if you struggle with it, then how can you find a way to kind of subvert the trauma and the paths to get to a place where you can. And some of us, me included, are never going to fully heal from certain things, but we can find ways to sneak around the harm people caused. Then on Wednesday, we have Venus trine Jupiter retrograde. We have Venus trine Saturn, who is about to station direct and will be at the stationing degree. And so this, I think, is going to be a moment of great desire. Also, really check. I've had a couple people be like, what's going on? And then it turns out they have a placement in Scorpio that is being triggered by Jupiter and Saturn right now. So really check to see if you have that, if you're feeling a bit wishy-washy or kind of disoriented. It doesn't have to be bad disorienting. It can be like really beautiful, rich psychic travels, but it's a lot. So just know that that's what's going on, and that, it's going to kind of continue for a smidge. My dog is just rummaging around behind me. Reggie, okay, baby? It's okay, love. Go on the bed. Do you have your twist? Yeah, my sweet angel boy. Anyways, and so this is a really beautiful moment after we have this recognition of where do we want to go next? how do we want to utilize this Saturn-Venus trine? It is also going to bring up, especially if you are single or in a relational situation that there's a bit of struggle, it is going to bring up a desire to make and grow and build and connect. And if you don't have that, it can be frustrating, but I would encourage you to take it and be like, I am going to manifest these things that I am craving and desiring. And with that new moon that just happened and with the Mercury Cazimi, you're going to have a lot of really good information to activate this grand trine for you. And yeah, Jupiter is retrograde, but the Jupiter retrograde is asking us to reconsider care and abundance and protection and the ways in which we see and imagine growth. And so you have all of this really good, rich soil that's kind of been dumped on you with this Mercury retrograde so far. Plant some seeds. Be like, no, I deserve this. And I'm not going to accept anything less than this because that's the bare minimum. And I deserve more than the bare minimum, specifically in relationships. And if you are someone who is struggling to meet the needs of a partner in a relationship, and caveat, it's been a long time and it doesn't seem like things are working. I'm not saying just meet your partner. Maybe it's the time to release them. Maybe it's the time to let them go find someone who is going to meet their needs so that you can find someone who meets your needs, because that's also a thing. If you can't meet the needs of your partner, then your needs are also not being met. And I'm not saying to think about yourself when you're not meeting your partner's needs, but you know, that kind of desperation to meet someone's needs and never being able to meet it can be really harmful, and it can hurt both of you. So maybe this is a day to set someone free to find something not better as in you're not good enough, but better as in like better for them, so that you can find someone who is better for you. And also to kind of work on that self-confidence to believe that you are enough, and that it really is just finding the right partner. Everyone is enough for the right relationship. It's just finding that rightness in a relationship. And you can meet some really lovely, karmically destined people, and they're here for a moment and for a lesson. And if you're still holding on to that, release it in this moment and believe and desire something more stable and permanent if you are a person who craves stability and permanence. Because if you're not, then maybe you're manifesting something completely different. Maybe you're manifesting a traveling polycule, which can be your version of stability and contentment. So yeah, harness it to really connect with people, to really only accept what you deserve in relationship and only let others accept what they deserve. You know, if someone's like, no, I don't need that, you know, you can ask them, do you truly not need that, or do you just feel like you're being too much? And you can ask yourself that question as well. So yeah, a lot about what you need and desire. And with that Saturn stationing, it's not quite here yet. You know, we're still in the process. It might be a little frustrating because we're like, I'm not getting the Saturnian stuff, the building tools that I need and I want. That's okay, because we're wrapping up a building process in the, Pisces house in your chart. And we're going to be building into Aries next. And this is kind of that wrapping up of the construction process. So you don't need to do something new. You just need to tighten up what you got. And release anything that is no longer meant for you, because that's what happens at the end of a Saturn cycle. Then we move on to Friday, where we have Saturn stationing direct. Thank goodness, guys, all of those retrograde planets, too much. So Saturn stations direct. This is when we start to progress into our next cycle, into our next season, taking all of the things we've learned through the Saturn retrograde, all of the struggle, all of the realizations, all of the no, because Saturn is very no centric, especially when it's retrograde. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. No, that's not possible. No, this is better for you. And there are yeses in Saturn, but they often feel like no's. And so we have to be respectful and participate in the energy, knowing that a no can be a yes. It's just a different kind of yes, especially with Saturn. So we have that lovely direct. Thank goodness we're going to be moving into, in February, it'll be entering into Aries for the final time, at least in the next 28-year cycle. And so we're headed back that direction. And so we're going to be moving back towards the energy that we entered in the beginning of this past year, 2025, into 2026. So it's kind of interesting. There's going to be some parallels, but hopefully there is kind of a feeling of having kind of elevated to the next level. Then we move on to Saturday, where we have Mercury stationing direct. Oh, thank God, at 20 degrees. Interestingly enough, it's at 20 degrees, Saturn stationing direct at 25. We will be going into a Mercury trine Saturn very soon again. So yay. And then we'll also, Mercury's going to catch up to all the planets and go back and have all the conjunctions and all the things. So we're going to be hitting our final and third hit as we head that other direction. So just be aware that you have experienced a lot of this energy before. We're just getting it in a different form and version. And then on Sunday, we have Venus in a pretty testy spot, opposing Uranus and Taurus, and then in that trine with Neptune. It is the final Venus trine with Neptune, and they kind of enjoy, even when, Neptune's retrograde, they really enjoy each other's energy. This is a moment to really dream and believe. The bright side about Neptune retrogrades, especially near Saturn, is it's really practical. It honestly is. It's like, how do we take magic and make it real? And how do we put this into your real life? If you meet someone who has a Neptune that is retrograde, especially if they work in metaphysics, there is often a very real practical component to their work, because it is Neptune not at this high octave of like ethereal buzzing in a different realm. It is Neptune that has to work within a lot of the laws of the world. So, this is a moment where we get to dream, but there's a practicality to it. And also with that opposition, with that 29 degrees Uranus, we know a lot of ways that relationships don't work for us. This also might be a day where we are presented, and this happens to my clients a lot when they are seeking love or seeking someone, especially if they're breaking karmic cycles, which most of us are. This might be the day where that almost person comes up, where a person that has almost everything you want shows up. There's just something missing. It's not quite there yet. It's not the thing that you're asking for. It is the almost. It could be very nice, but it may not have the stamina you need. It may not have the expansion. It doesn't really have one of the really key things you have asked for, but it's really nice. And so I encourage you on this day to just say, universe, I want a little more. Maybe it's still that person, it's just that person in 6 months. But maybe it's a different person who is all the things you've been manifesting and who is ready to complete your karmic contract. And so if something happens on this day, take it slow. See what happens. Also, Venus is about to go into Sagittarius. Things about to get spicy and fun. But take a beat that day just to confirm that this situation, person, dynamic is what you truly want. Sometimes astrology isn't like a strict rule for what you must do. Actually, mostly it isn't. It is a moment to pause and to reconsider, and to, especially with us coming out of this Mercury retrograde moment, to really be like, what have I learned? And is this in alignment with it? Because I don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And then, yes, Venus goes into Sagittarius. And Venus in Sagittarius is a very spicy, fun situation. It will have a sextile with Pluto, so there will be that kind of pull, but the sextiles are a nice conversation. It's a friendship. And so we'll get some helpful information from Pluto, especially if there is so certain someone, which I feel like there is for some people on this day. That Venus-Pluto sextile will have a lot to say about your karmic dynamic. So hold off till Monday at least to see what's happening. And then also that next week, we're going to have a Gemini moon square the nodes, and it's going to be interesting. If you have a chart with a lot of squares, this will be really good for you. If you don't, it'll still be good for you, but it'll feel a little trickier because you're not used to such an aggressive aspect. If you have a grand square in your chart, this one's for you, especially in a mutable sign. Anyways, but that is next week. So that is the astrology of this week. Please comment if you have any questions or just want to say hey, and like and subscribe if you enjoy my stuff. It makes my day when I watch, one more person follow me. I don't really have a gift for social media, so anyone who chooses to follow me is just that much extra gravy. Have a lovely week, and I will see you later.